Welcome back, Defenders. Russia's fuel crisis is getting worse. Ukraine drone strike keeps Russia's only Rostov refinery burning for a third day. The Novoshatinsk oil refinery processes 100,000 barrels daily. Locals now face a water shortage, toxic air, and unpaid wages. This article is from yesterday. This is what the oil refinery fire looks like on day 3. I checked it this morning. And this is what the oil refinery fire looks like on day 4. So the firefighting crews have shut off the water to the local city to divert the water to try and put the fire out. So locals are complaining that they've been without water now for 3 days. In addition, so much of the fuel has burned, the air is toxic. It's not safe to breathe the air in the local area. We're also learning that the employees at this oil refinery have not been paid in 4 months? That's unrelated to the drone strike. Russia is just not paying their employees because they're running out of money. And it gets worse for Russia. Drone strikes spark fire at Russian gas terminal and oil refinery. This is the Ust-Luga gas processing complex near St. Petersburg. Ukraine has struck this before a couple times, but this was a big hit. I'm going to link all these videos down below if you want to see it for yourself. These are long-range Ukrainian drones slamming into the distillation towers. Massive fireball, massive strike. This complex outside of St. Petersburg is also now in serious trouble. So Ukraine, over the last month, since August 1st, has now hit at least 8 major Russian oil refineries, shutting down 5. This has to be close to at least 15% of Russia's refining capacity, and they're not going to be able to fix these terminals anytime soon. Even if they do, Ukraine is just going to keep striking them. Russia is on the brink of a gasoline crisis. Since the beginning of the year, AI-95 gasoline has risen in price by 32% to a new historic high in Russia. Russia is supposed to be a petrostate. Like, oil and gasoline is supposed to be their thing. Experts are confident that the record high gasoline prices will soon impact retail good prices, causing another explosion in the country's inflation rate. Yes, you can ship things by ships, airplanes, and trains, but eventually it has to be loaded on a truck. And once it's on a truck, there's a cost to transporting it to stores. If gasoline prices go up, shipping companies that use trucks have to raise prices for their services, which will then be passed on to Russian consumers. Inflation in Russia is already devastating, and it's only going to get worse because of this. So these are the pictures and videos going viral in Russia. Gas stations that are not being resupplied, they're not getting their fuel trucks, so they just zero out the board and nobody can purchase regular gasoline. Let me share this video. This is from Paralyzed Krai. This is Russia's far east, but they have a serious gas shortage.
Всем привет! Иду мимо заправки на военном часовое время 20:00. Не горит монитор. Что у нас в данный момент на заправке? То есть 92-го нет, 95-го нет. У них висит ремонт. У них получается только дизельное топливо. Машины подъезжают и разворачиваются. Здесь такая же ситуация, только дизельное топливо.
So these gas stations still have diesel, but they don't have ordinary gasoline for passenger cars. And for the gas stations that do still have regular gasoline, the lines queuing up are longer than a kilometer. Let me share this video with you. Russia has serious problems. They're already importing gasoline from Belarus and Kazakhstan. I don't think Ukraine is going to strike their refineries. But even with imports, they cannot produce domestically now enough gasoline to meet domestic consumption. There will be shortages as well as price increases, and this is going to wreak havoc on Russia's entire economy. Here is a translation from Anton from the Russian Telegram channel Nezigar. This is what they're saying about these strikes on refineries. Tensions in Russia's fuel market are rising. In Primary, there are kilometer-long queues at gas stations, and wholesale prices for gasoline and diesel have hit record highs. Officially, the reasons are no longer hidden. Refineries are shutting down after Ukrainian strikes. During peak summer days, up to 14% of processing capacity has gone idle. In 2025, the tactics of Ukrainian strikes have changed. Previously, they were one time, a unit would be damaged, the plant would reduce output, but recover within a few weeks. Now attacks are carried out in series and repeated on the same facilities. Ryazan, Syzran, Volgograd, Afipsky. This prevents the restoration of primary processing and hydrocracking and catalytic cracking units. For example, after a series of attacks, Ryazan refinery, 5% of Russia's total capacity, has halved its processing halt, while Novokubyevsky refinery, 3%, has its primary processing damaged. The largest refinery in southern Russia, in Volgograd, as well as Samara and Syzran refineries, have stopped receiving crude oil. Ukraine is widely using drones with a range of 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers. China can only cover part of the deficit: pumps, heat exchangers, and simply catalysts. However, for complex processes, its technology lags, and replacing Western components with Chinese ones requires restructuring the entire facility. As a result, every Ukrainian strike on a hydrocracking or reforming unit leads to months of downtime. Russia built all of these refineries with Western expertise, their components, their technicians. China can help replace some things, but if they want to entirely use Chinese components, they have to retool the entire facility. China operates slightly different than Western oil majors, and this is going to spiral out of control fast for Russia if Ukraine continues these strikes, which they're going to do. But this is a rippling effect throughout all of Russia's industries. Here's a comprehensive post from Anton, I'll link it down below, just breaking down all of Russia's sectors are collapsing. Their automotive industry has collapsed. Their agricultural machinery industry has collapsed. They're having record drought in Russia right now, so Russia might lose up to 25% of their grain crop this year. All of Russia's construction companies are going bankrupt. Gas by coupons. Their aviation industry is in shambles after that hacking. Their shipbuilding industry is collapsing, and all their domestic production of consumer electronics like TVs, microwaves, refrigerators, all those companies are struggling as well. The Kremlin is spending 40% of their annual budget on war, while the civilian economy is dying. Russia's civilian economy is dying. And it's going to get worse over the next 6 months. In the last video, it was unveiled Ukraine's new long-range cruise missile. This is the Flamingo. And I don't think it's actually been used yet on a Russian target. Things in Russia keep blowing up and people online are quick to jump. This was a Flamingo missile. But I think Ukraine's military is going to announce the first successful strike somewhere in Russia. Ukraine is still producing drones, which I think they're using for these refineries, but once these Flamingo missiles are operational and ready to go with the military, it's going to be a bad week. It's going to be a bad month. It's going to be a bad year for the Russians. So this is a video given to Politico, once again demonstrating the capabilities of the Flamingo cruise missile. And there is an interesting detail that we should go over real quick. Oh yeah, there's no sound for this video, but what I wanted to tell you is that there is a booster rocket to get the cruise missile off the ground. Normally, cruise missiles are launched by airplanes, F-16s or MiGs or whatever. But this is going to be ground launched. I think this is supposed to help protect the lives of pilots. If pilots don't have to get close to the front lines, then Russia can't shoot them down. But you can see there's a kind of like a belly booster to this cruise missile. The fuel is used just to get it off the ground. And once it's at a cruising altitude, the booster detaches and then the jet engine takes over. This is incredible. And at the moment, Ukraine says they're producing one a day. Their goal by October is to be producing 7 or 8 of these a day. We have that to look forward to. Stay tuned. This is a funny story, and I'm glad Ukraine is following up on this. Russia's largest Druzhba pumping station struck again. Hungary cries energy crisis. There is a video. It's a thermal, so we can't see the big explosions, but this is the pumping station in Bryansk. The pipeline goes through Russia and then Belarus to get to Slovakia and Hungary. And Ukraine's not holding back. This is a valid military target of Russian energy infrastructure on Russian territory, and Ukraine finally decided to destroy it. This is the pumping station feeding oil that is being purchased by countries like Slovakia and Hungary, and they're pretty upset. Hungary and Slovakia demand Ukraine stop attacks on Russia's Druzhba pipeline. Where was Hungary and Slovakia to demand that Russia stop attacking hospitals, Russia stop attacking universities, and Ukraine's energy infrastructure? All of Ukraine's thermal power plants have been destroyed by the Russians. And I didn't hear a peep from Hungary and Slovakia. So how much goes through this pipeline? And the estimate is 370 million euros a month are pumped through this pipeline to Slovakia, Hungary, and I think the Czech Republic. So by shutting down this pipeline, this will starve the Russians about 1.5 billion in revenue for the rest of this year. So yes, this was the smart move. This probably should have happened 6 months ago. Viktor Orban is panicking because he makes money off of Hungary's energy sector. So he sent a letter to Donald Trump complaining, and Donald Trump responded, "Victor, I do not like hearing this. I am very angry about it. Tell Slovakia you are my great friend, Donald Trump." So let me get this straight. Trump is sanctioning India for buying Russian oil, but tells Orban he is very angry at Ukraine for disrupting oil sales to Hungary. Why is it not okay for India to buy Russia's oil, but it's perfectly fine for Slovakia and Hungary to buy Russian oil? This is a contradiction. There is no answer. A deliberate strike. Russian attack hits U.S. electronics plant in western Ukraine. This was the story breaking 3 days ago. We have to talk about this. This is, let's see here. Today, Russian missiles targeted the American-owned Flex factory in the town of Mukachevo in the west of Ukraine. This is Ukraine's prime minister posting this. A year ago, my team and I visited this factory. We were impressed by the scale of investment, technological advancement, and strength of this enterprise. This was an American-owned business that produced electronics in the west of Ukraine, and Russia deliberately targeted it with 2 caliber cruise missiles. This man right here, his name is Andy Hunder, and he is the president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine, and he is on site at the American factory that the Russians deliberately blew up.
So you can still see the smoke and the burning of this American investment here in western Ukraine. We are very close to the border with the EU, and just earlier this morning, Russian missiles hit this location here. This is the American company Flex, one of the biggest American investments here in Ukraine. And look at it. totally destroyed. This is one of the most safest parts of Ukraine. The Transcarpathia, this is the other side of the mountains, the Carpathian.
This factory was on the other side of the mountains. So people were injured, but thankfully nobody was killed in the attack. This is in the town of Mukachevo, and you can see this is very close to the Hungarian and Slovakian borders. So in order to successfully destroy this factory, the Russians launched cruise missiles over the Black Sea, went around Moldova, went around Romania, went over the mountains, and then hit this American factory. Putin wanted to send a message to Trump. Kremlin to Washington, your businesses are targets too. Do you guys remember when the White House said that the minerals deal was a guarantee of Ukrainian security because Russia will never attack an American investment on Ukrainian soil? That was supposed to be the whole gambit of the mineral deal. If America invests in Ukraine, building factories or infrastructure, then the Russians wouldn't dare attack it because that would be an attack on America. But Donald Trump is a president, and he's a simp, and he has no response, no reaction. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if Russia blows up American factories anywhere in the world. Trump gives 2 weeks to assess Russia-Ukraine peace. He did it. He said the line. After 8 months of 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, he said it again yesterday.
Not happy at all. We'll see what happens. I think over the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out which way it's going to go. And I better be very happy.
I mean, this is at this point like an SNL sketch, like it's parody. Donald Trump thinks everyone in the world is so stupid and that he can just keep doing this forever. 2 weeks go by, I'm going to give Putin another 2 weeks. 2 weeks go by, I'm going to give Putin another 2 weeks. Taco Trump will always taco out. I mean, I should have given up a long time ago, guys, but I am confident Donald Trump is never going to do anything because he loves Putin. He loves the Russians, and the Russians control him. They own him. Putin can kill Americans. He can blow up American businesses. He could even attack America, probably. And Trump won't do anything. He's a coward. Concerning all these summits in Alaska and Washington, D.C., they accomplished nothing. Donald Trump just wasted everyone's time. Lavrov says there is no meeting planned between Putin and Zelensky. This was supposed to be the entire victory from the summit with Putin in Alaska. Trump and his administration told everyone that Putin agreed to a bilateral or trilateral meeting with Zelensky, and for the last week the Russians have been screaming, "We never agreed to that. Donald Trump is a liar. He's just making stuff up." Here is Lavrov on Meet the Press once again saying, there is no scheduled meeting between Zelensky and Putin.
There is no meeting planned. And I'm not challenging this, but you cannot, I think, understand what I am saying. Putin is ready to meet with Zelensky when the agenda would be ready for a summit. And this agenda is not ready at all.
Putin is willing to meet with Zelensky when the agenda is set, meaning once Ukraine is ready to surrender. Once Ukraine is on their knees begging for mercy from the Russians and will capitulate to all of Russia's demands, then Putin will entertain the idea of somehow meeting with President Zelensky. So the entire week, it was a waste of time. Putin sticks to his demands on Donbass and no NATO troops. The Russians are saying no Western countries can have troops on the grounds to guarantee security for Ukraine. And they're still demanding that Ukraine has to demilitarize. Ukraine has to reduce the size of their military to like less than 80,000, so they're defenseless in the event Russia wants to attack them again. Russia doesn't believe in security guarantees. Russia wants to kill as many Ukrainians as possible and steal their land. This is a joke. China is ready to send peacekeepers to Ukraine under a United Nations authorization. So the Russians and the Chinese are saying, why can't China be the peacekeeping force on the ground in Ukraine to maintain the peace if there's a ceasefire or whatever? But here's the problem is China is not neutral. China's foreign minister told the European Union that Beijing cannot afford Russia to lose this war in Ukraine. This was a month ago that the Chinese foreign minister told the Europeans under no circumstances will they allow the Russians to lose, because that would endanger China's national security interests. And of course, Zelensky rejects this. Zelensky rejects China as a peace guarantor after Beijing supplies 90% of weapons components to Russia. If China participated in sanctions, this war would be over tomorrow. But China is funding and feeding Russia's military war machine. So no, China, you don't get to be a neutral party to guarantee the peace and have boots on the ground in Europe, which I don't think any European country should be excited about. Here's the list of components that China is supplying to the Russian military. Some have been sanctioned, some have been not. China's gotten a free pass the last 3.5 years, but they are the only reason why the Russians have been able to continue this fight. Here's some bad news. Pentagon has quietly barred Ukrainian long-range strikes in Russia with U.S. missiles. This has been revealed by the Wall Street Journal, but Elbridge Colby is demanding that Ukraine go through him before they use any American weapon or any weapon containing American components on the territory of Russia. So in effect, Pete Hegseth has a veto power, meaning Ukraine for the last 6 or 7 months hasn't been allowed to use Gimlers, ATACMS, or even Storm Shadows on the territory of Russia. They've been telling the Ukrainians no. This is worse than Joe Biden or Jake Sullivan last year. This probably contributed to why Ukraine had to pull out of the Kursk region. Is because Donald Trump and his administration was telling the Ukrainians, you can't use any of our weapons on Russian territory anymore. However, Ukraine is still conducting long-range strikes with their own weapons, and Zelensky confirms they're not coordinating any of these strikes with the United States. They're domestically produced drones, these new Flamingo cruise missiles. This is the answer. Ukraine just has to produce it themselves, and Western countries are helping. But if they produced it themselves, Russia can't complain about all their stuff being blown up by these cruise missiles. Coming back to Trump, guys, this was pretty disgusting, but Trump announced that he's inviting Putin to the FIFA World Cup next year in the United States. He wants to host Vladimir Putin in Washington, D.C., and he held up this picture showing how proud he was of his summit in Alaska. This man is delusional. Like, he is seriously sick and unhealthy, both mentally and physically. And he held up this picture saying, why aren't you impressed? I got the dictator of Russia to come meet with me and hang out with me in Alaska. Isn't that cool? Don't you like seeing two strong, powerful men standing next to each other? Doesn't that make me look powerful and cool? It's so stupid, guys, but that's how he thinks. He only thinks in terms of power and wealth and control. Nothing else matters to this man. Here is the comparison a year ago, what the White House looked like, and what it looks like today. Donald Trump is a gold-obsessed dictator demanding tribute and bribes from everyone in the world currently. And he's not going to change. He's not going to get better. The man is 80 years old. He is fixed in his ways. So he is going to continue doing this until he is dead. He is never going to willingly leave office, and he's going to spend the next however long just threatening people and demanding tribute, demanding bribes, trying to enrich himself and his children as much as possible before he's dead. So for my friends in Europe, I know that half my audience is European. You should be concerned. You should be freaked out. You should be very worried about the developments of the United States. Here is a clip from Jessica Berlin. She speaks for herself. Let me share this clip with you.
It's not about Trump. It's not about Putin. It's about Europe. And 3.5 years of failure by European leaders to actually develop a strategy, to communicate that strategy to European voters, and to commit to acting. We have not at this point here in Europe even managed to successfully implement the sanctions that we've already declared. This is ultimately what is giving Putin his leverage and what is giving Trump his power. The fact that the Europeans have developed a strategy of sort of performative helplessness. And now is the last of perhaps 37,000 wake-up calls over the past decade that Europe needs to decide, what are we willing to do to secure our continent? And that starts with Ukraine. And until we decide that, Trump and Putin will be determining the direction of this war.
It's pretty harsh, but the Europeans have mastered performative helplessness. I don't understand it. When you look at the economy of the EU, 18.6 trillion, go ahead and add in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, maybe even Japan and South Korea. This is no contest. The GDP of Russia is only 2 trillion. It would be fantastic if the United States was leading as it's supposed to. But on the outside, you can probably tell that the United States has serious problems. Things in the United States are not going to get better over the next 3 years. All of our institutions are breaking down currently, and we're turning into an authoritarian police state. So help us, Europe. I'm begging you. You need to drastically make some changes and make sure that Russia does not win this war. Because if Russia finds a way to win, then eventually Russia and the United States, under Donald Trump, will be allied together against you. That's what Putin wants. That's also kind of what Donald Trump wants. This is how bad things in the United States are getting. FBI raids home of outspoken Trump critic and former advisor. This is former National Security Advisor John Bolton. And I don't agree with all of John Bolton's opinions and policies. He's a neocon. He's a neoconservative from the Bush administration. But he supports democracy and human rights around the world. He is entirely pro-Ukraine. He has over 1 million followers on Twitter, and he's on cable television almost every single day, attacking Trump and defending Ukraine against Russia. And Trump decided to have him silenced. He wasn't charged with anything. He wasn't arrested. He just had the FBI go to his home to look for anything they could find to put this man in jail. Donald Trump is now targeting his biggest critics here in the United States. Given enough time, the FBI or whoever will go to the homes of Michael McFaul and Bill Kristol and anyone who opposes and criticizes Trump. Once they get the big fish, once they get the most prominent, well-known people, they will start going down the line. And eventually, a year from now, 2 years from now, the FBI will show up at my door and try to arrest me for criticizing the president. This is a dictatorship. This is a police state. And things are getting stupid. I have to mention this story as well. U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency chief among latest ousted, fired by Pete Hegseth. So this general, this is a 3-star general, he was ordered to produce a report about Donald Trump's strikes on Iran. And his final conclusion, his final report after reviewing all the evidence, is that Donald Trump's strikes on that mountain near Tehran only set Iran's nuclear program back about 6 months. This upset Trump. He got news he didn't want. So he had this general fired. He also fired the chief for the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Basically, anybody in the federal government who gives Donald Trump news he doesn't like, he's just going to fire that person and replace them with a sycophant who will just lie, who will just give him fake evidence, fake reports. Facts and truth in the United States is breaking down. We are losing it rapidly, and things are only going to degrade over the next 3 years as decent men who have served their country honorably for decades are going to keep being replaced until the numbers are correct, the numbers that Donald Trump want. And speaking of shitty dictators, North Korea's Kim decorates troops who fought for Russia against Ukraine. Wow. Kim Jong-un awards soldiers who fought with Russia against Ukraine. These are the pictures and videos coming out of North Korea, and Kim Jong-un is now finally ready. Good Lord, look at this office. Look at the picture of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-un, and he's got this giant throne, but for almost a year, the North Koreans were lying about sending their soldiers to Russia. But something changed, and Kim Jong-un is now integrating this battle into state propaganda. So they're putting out some pretty insane stuff, such as this. Let me play a little bit of this clip coming out of Pyongyang, welcoming home officers who fought with the Russians against Ukraine.
심정이 마음에 모시고 절대 충성, 절대 복종의 정신으로 모스크 영토를 해방할 때 당의 명령을 집행했습니다. 듣고 싶었습니다. 설사 사랑하는 조국 땅은 다시 밟지 못한데도 따뜻한 조국의 흙에 덮이기를 원했던 아들들이 꿈에도 그리 없던 품에 자기의 넋을 묻던 못 잊을 8월의 그 밤.
I mean, there's like an hour of these clips of just insanity in North Korea welcoming home the caskets of cannon fodder used on the front lines. Like, what is the ideological cause for North Korea to be going to war with Ukraine? There's the Russian narrative that Ukraine is a proxy state of the United States. The United States is the great evil. North Korea wants to destroy the United States. And they'll get closer to that objective by destroying Ukraine. None of this makes any sense, guys. Kim Jong-un just likes money. He just likes money. And the Russians are paying him to send some of his slave soldiers to go fight and die in Ukraine. I just want to take a moment to say that all of these Russian propagandists, such as like Douglas McGregor, and I'm sure there's tweets from Scott Ritter and everyone saying that it was nonsense that North Korean soldiers were fighting against Ukraine. This was Western lies and Western propaganda. The Russians were burning the faces off the dead soldiers to conceal them and say, no, these were ethnic minorities from the Far East. These were not North Koreans invading Europe. And now North Korea has admitted it. That yes, North Korea is helping Russia conquer the European continent. And there's like no news about this. There's like no reaction from the global community. Nothing. Final couple stories. This is a sad one. Ukrainian MiG-29 pilot dies in a landing crash after a combat mission. This is pilot Serhiy Bandar, and he gave his life for his country. I'm sure over the last couple of years, he did a fantastic job defending the skies, shooting down threats, and conducting combat missions, but he won't be the last one. This won't be the last pilot and plane that Ukraine has to lose before Russia is finally defeated. One piece of good news, Air Force's cheap and fast to produce long-range missile is being built for Ukraine. And this was announced, this is good news. The United States is going to send Ukraine 3,350 extended-range attack munitions, or ERAMs. These are kind of like a crossover between a glide bomb and a cruise missile. They're launched from planes, probably F-16s, and they have a longer range, 460 kilometers or about 300 miles. That's longer than a glide bomb, but not anywhere near the distance of a cruise missile. There is a small motor on the back to give it some thrust, but this thing can go pretty fast. 760 kilometers per hour, and it has like a CEP target rate of about 10 meters. This has been in discussion for a while, and the United States is selling these. So this is Europeans buying this for Ukraine, and America is just willing to sell them. But these should be delivered, I think, within the next 6 weeks. This was part of a package of $850 million financed by Europe. Well done, everyone. These will make a difference on the battlefield once they show up, basically at the end of September. Canada to send over $700 million in drones and ammunition to Ukraine this September. This was Ukraine's Independence Day or Flag Day. It's a holiday in Ukraine, and there's lots of high-profile people visiting the capital city, including Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. These are some nice photographs of the Canadian Prime Minister meeting with President Zelensky. So I just want to share a little bit of this clip of Zelensky and the Prime Minister of Canada meeting in Kyiv.
Minister of National Defense. Good to see you. Prime Minister.
At the very beginning, when we signed by President of Ukraine, Putin and Zelensky, and the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney.
Thank you so much, Canada. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.